Okay, we'll be talking about demand and the law of demand, and it's some subject that you would think would be really easy to understand, but what ends up happening is kids and most students who learn it have a difficult time with it. So I want you to make sure you pay attention as we go through this presentation. Okay, the law of demand states that consumers will buy more of something if it costs less and less of something if it costs more. Another way of saying that is the higher the price, the smaller the quantity demanded. So the law of demand states that the quantity demanded varies inversely with the price, with everything remaining constant. So what you're looking at is the behavior of the buyers. You're looking at the concept or the mindset that buyers have and trying to decide if they should buy something or not. So you're looking at how much of a good or service consumers are both willing and able to buy at different prices during a given period of time, other things remaining constant. So a demand curve, what you look at when you actually see a demand curve, is a collection of x and y coordinates consisting of price and quantity demanded. So it's not a single quantity of a good or service that you would buy at one price. The demand schedule displays the different quantities, the x-axis, that will be demanded at different possible prices, which ends up being the y-axis. Okay, so a demand schedule, what you would be looking at is rows and columns, and the columns would be price and then quantity, and then what you're looking at is different sets of pairs of coordinates with the x and the y, which is your quantity and your price. So the market demand is the sum total of all the individual demands. And then you'll be looking at an animation that'll be explaining the differences of individual demands. So the market demand is the sum total of all the individual demands. So each person has their own demand, but then when you total up everybody's individual demand, you'll end up with the market demand. So you're looking at the various quantities of a product people are willing and able to buy at different prices. So you're looking at all quantities at all prices. Okay, so for individual and market demand, you'll be looking at an animation here where you're looking at Phoebe has an individual demand for pizzas, and she will buy one pizza at the price of $12. However, Cronus will not buy any, but he will buy one pizza at $8, and Themis would only buy one pizza at $4. So they each have their own individual demand. However, when you total up all of their individual demands, you'll have the market demand, which is the average of all of their individual demands. Now, looking at a demand curve, you first have to have a demand schedule, which is price and quantity demanded. Price is on the vertical axis, quantity is on the horizontal axis. So looking at this animation, you have a price of $1 and a quantity demanded of $80. You have a price of $2, and then the buyer would buy a quantity of 55 at that price. At the price of $3, the quantity demanded would be 35. At the price of $4, the quantity demanded would be 20. And at the price of $5, the quantity demanded would be 10. So as you plot the points, you're doing the typical x and y axis and plotting each individual point. And as you continue through plotting each of the x and y coordinates, you'll end up connecting the dots, and that's where you get your demand curve. So you can look at it as either a collection of points and you don't even need the demand curve, or the demand curve is just a graphic representation of all the individual x and y coordinates. Sticky paper. Okay, so demand curves slope downward. You may have noticed that there's a negative slope to the demand curve. So demand curves show an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. There's always a relationship. What you're looking at is the difference how they're related, how price is related to quantity. So why is there a negative slope to the demand curve? Well, there's some different concepts here. There's the income effect. So as you have more buying power if the price goes down. If all of a sudden things go on sale, you're able to afford to buy more. If prices go up and you still have the same constant amount of money, then you can't buy as much. Diminishing personal value is another concept, which is if the price gets too high on something, you'll buy something else instead. You value the use of some things over others, so if the price gets too high for one thing, you won't value it as much and will stop buying it as the price goes up. The other is the substitution effect, which is the price goes up too expensive for the good that you want, you will substitute something else in its place, so as the price goes up, you'll end up consuming less of that. And then the last thing is diminishing marginal utility, which is the more you consume of something, the less psychological satisfaction you'll get out of consuming that. So if you ate a bunch of Oreos, the first Oreo you would eat, you would get a lot of utility or satisfaction out of. After the 10th one, you're getting less satisfaction. After the 50th Oreo, you could have negative marginal utility, which is you would be throwing up. Okay, facts about demand. A demand curve is the relationship between price and quantity. It's a set of coordinates. The quantity demanded is a single quantity that consumers are willing and able to buy at a specified price. It's a pair of coordinates. A change in the price of the good itself does not change demand. It's another pair of coordinates among a set of coordinates. So it's also called movement along a demand curve.